When we speak about the idea of placing our head on the ground, it's easy to reduce it to a mere physical action. You bow, you kneel, you lower yourself, and yet, if we stop at the surface, we miss something profound. That gesture, as simple as it might seem, carries the weight of a universe of meaning. It is the embodiment of humility, the acknowledgement that we are not the center of all things, and the recognition that there exists a reality far greater than our own small existence. To place the head on the ground is to physically remind oneself of the limitations inherent in being human, of our finitude, and yet, paradoxically, it is through this act of surrender that we begin to touch the infinite. Think about it for a moment. The human ego, by nature, constantly seeks to assert itself. We are trained, consciously or unconsciously, to measure our worth by our accomplishments, our possessions, or the recognition we receive from others. Our society encourages this. From a young age, we are taught that we must rise, stand tall, compete, and prove ourselves. And while there is value in striving and in excellence, there is a hidden danger. When striving becomes an obsession with self, it blinds us. We begin to overestimate our significance and underestimate the vastness of life and the universe. And here, the act of humbling oneself physically, putting the head on the ground, becomes a profound antidote. It is a conscious reminder that no matter how much we achieve, we are part of a larger order, one that is beyond the totality of our comprehension. Humility, in this sense, is not weakness. It is not a retreat from life or a denial of our capabilities. Rather, it is the recognition of reality as it truly is. Psychologically speaking, humility allows us to see ourselves with clarity. When you bow, you are practicing self-awareness, the kind that frees you from the prison of ego-driven illusions. You are acknowledging your vulnerabilities, your limitations, and in doing so, you create space for growth. This is why philosophers and spiritual thinkers across civilizations have emphasized humility as a cornerstone of wisdom. It is the first step toward understanding, not just understanding others, but understanding oneself. Let's connect this with the inner mechanics of the human psyche. When we humble ourselves, there is a shift in perception. We move from a self-centered framework, where everything revolves around our desires and fears, to a perspective that sees the interconnectivity of life. When the head is on the ground, the body is in a position of submission, yet the mind is free to explore. It is in this paradox, physical lowering, mental elevation, that profound insight begins to emerge. Neuroscientific studies, while still exploring the exact mechanisms, suggest that acts of humility and submission reduce the activation of areas in the brain associated with self-aggrandizement, and at the same time increase empathy, emotional regulation, and perspective-taking. In other words, humility is not just a moral or spiritual practice, it is a psychological one that reshapes the way we think and feel. Humility also opens the door to learning. Consider this: when a person believes they already know everything, their capacity to acquire new knowledge diminishes. Their mind becomes rigid, trapped within the walls of certainty. But when you acknowledge that there is a force, a wisdom, or a reality greater than your own understanding, you cultivate openness. You become teachable. And this is where the spiritual dimension intersects with the psychological. The act of lowering oneself physically symbolizes an inner willingness to listen, to learn, and to grow. It is a recognition that life is larger than any single individual's perspective, that the truths of existence are vast and often hidden, and that no matter how accomplished we are, there is always more to grasp. Yet here's where many misunderstand the concept. Humility does not require self-degradation. It does not ask you to diminish your worth, nor does it demand passivity in the face of injustice or adversity. True humility is confident in its strength, yet unpretentious in its expression. It is the quiet assurance that one's value does not need constant validation, because it is rooted in integrity, understanding, and alignment with something greater than the self. When your head touches the ground, it is not to signal defeat, but to declare awareness. It is to admit with clarity that human existence is fragile, that life is fleeting, and that our control over circumstances is limited. And paradoxically, it is in this awareness that true strength is born. There is also a relational aspect to humility. The person who bows their head metaphorically and literally can connect with others more authentically. Arrogance builds walls, ego isolates, humility bridges gaps. By recognizing our limitations and the limitations of those around us, we foster compassion, patience, and understanding. When we accept that we do not hold all the answers, we allow space for dialogue, for empathy, and for genuine connection. This is not a sentimental observation, it is practical. In every relationship, whether personal, professional, or spiritual, humility creates the conditions for trust and cooperation. Without it, we operate from a place of dominance or defensiveness, and meaningful interaction becomes difficult, if not impossible. Let's also consider the temporal dimension. Life, in its unpredictable unfolding, constantly challenges our sense of control. We plan, we strive, we exert ourselves, but events unfold beyond our command. Humility prepares us for these inevitable moments. When the head is lowered in acknowledgement of forces larger than ourselves, we cultivate resilience. We learn to accept what we cannot change and to respond wisely to what we can. This is the difference between arrogance, which resists reality and suffers when it does not bend to our will, and humility, which aligns with reality and discovers peace even amid struggle. Now integrate this idea with the larger theme of the speech, secrets of the sky in the heart. The physical act of submission, the head touching the ground, is inseparable from the spiritual and intellectual insight that resides within us. Humility is the gateway, the prerequisite for recognizing those deeper truths. Without it, the mind is clouded by pride, the heart is hardened by self-importance, and the soul remains distant from the subtleties of wisdom. But with it, a remarkable transformation occurs. The very act of acknowledging our smallness paradoxically elevates us. The sky, the vast expanse of knowledge, spirituality, and understanding, becomes accessible not through conquest or force, but through submission and receptivity. And here is a profound paradox to hold on to. In lowering oneself, in accepting our limitations, we actually gain freedom. Freedom from the tyranny of ego. Freedom from the anxiety of needing to prove ourselves constantly. Freedom from the illusion that we are entirely in control. And with that freedom comes clarity, perspective, and the ability to align our lives with truth, meaning, and purpose. It is a liberation that cannot be purchased, achieved through mere effort, or bestowed by others. It is discovered through an inward journey, an internal act of humility that manifests outwardly. So, when you reflect on the idea of head on the ground, understand it as more than a posture. It is a philosophy, a psychological tool, and a spiritual practice all at once. It teaches us that true greatness is not about dominance, recognition, or accumulation. It is about awareness, clarity, and alignment with what is eternal and unchanging. It is about living in a way that recognizes the limits of the self, honors the depth of existence, and prepares the heart to receive the vast truths that life has to offer. And in this practice, one finds a quiet strength, a grounded presence, and a readiness to face the mysteries of existence with humility, courage, and insight. So, I leave you with this thought: humility is not a submission to weakness, it is an embrace of reality. It is the conscious choice to place the head on the ground, not in surrender to defeat, but in recognition of a greater order. And in that simple, profound act lies the key to transformation, the key to seeing ourselves clearly, connecting deeply with others, and opening the heart to the secrets of the sky. In bowing low, we rise high. In surrendering our ego, we discover our true strength, and in recognizing our limits, we find the limitless. If humility allows us to bow our heads, then the heart is what lifts us toward understanding. While the body submits to the ground, the heart opens to the sky. It is within this tender, unseen space that the deepest truths of existence are registered. The heart is more than a pump sustaining life. It is the seat of insight, of emotional resonance, and of spiritual awareness. Everything we experience, every thought, every intention, every emotion, passes through the heart in some form, shaping our perception of reality and our connection to the world around us. The head can contemplate, the hands can act, but the heart perceives what the mind often cannot. It senses meaning, detects truth, and harbors wisdom that is beyond rational calculation. Consider the human experience. We often search for answers in books, in lectures, in arguments, and in the validation of others. And yet, some of the most profound knowledge is discovered not through external investigation, but through introspection and listening to the heart. When the head is humbled, the heart becomes receptive. It begins to notice the subtle currents of intuition, empathy, and understanding that guide us toward choices aligned with a higher order. This is not mere sentimentality, it is a disciplined capacity to sense reality beyond superficial appearances. The heart becomes a gateway, translating the vastness of the unseen into something tangible in our lives. Psychologically, this is where our emotions and intellect intersect. The heart allows us to process experience with depth and nuance. When our hearts are open, we are capable of compassion without attachment, judgment without harshness, and love without ego. These qualities are essential because the truths of existence are often layered and paradoxical. Life is rarely straightforward, and wisdom rarely arrives through brute force or strict logic. It arrives when the heart is prepared to perceive it, when we cultivate the ability to feel fully without being consumed, to observe deeply without being blinded by our desires or fears. Spiritually, the heart is the place where the divine speaks most clearly. Many traditions teach that God, or the ultimate reality, is known not through the mind alone, but through the heart. When we humble ourselves physically, we are readying the vessel, the heart, for reception. The secrets of the sky, the eternal truths, do not descend as mere concepts. They are felt, recognized, and internalized. The heart senses harmony, discerns injustice, recognizes beauty, and responds to the divine call. It is the meeting place of humanity and transcendence, the space where outward submission and inward awakening converge. But there is a challenge. The heart can be clouded by fear, by ego, and by distraction. It requires discipline to maintain clarity, much like tending a delicate garden. Regular reflection, mindfulness, and acts of service cultivate this clarity. When we prioritize the heart as a center of understanding, every interaction, every decision, every thought is filtered through a lens of purpose and alignment. The heart becomes not only a receiver of truth but a guide in action, directing our deeds to reflect the inner wisdom we have nurtured. So if the head humbles itself to the ground, let the heart rise in awareness. Let it carry the capacity to feel deeply, understand profoundly, and act wisely. Let it be the bridge between the finite self and the infinite truths that surround us, the interpreter of life's mysteries, and the guardian of what is essential. When we cultivate the heart in this way, we discover that submission does not lead to weakness, but to illumination. That humility does not diminish us, but frees us to access the deeper secrets of existence. And in this, there is a simple truth to carry forward. The head may bow, but the heart must remain awake. The wisdom of the sky is not above or outside. It is within, waiting to be perceived, embraced, and lived. If you nurture your heart, you will find that the greatest insights, the deepest guidance, and the truest sense of purpose are never lost. They have always been there, quietly waiting for your recognition. We have spoken about bowing the head in humility and opening the heart to perceive truth, but the journey does not end there. Our inner awareness must find expression in the world. Our insights, our clarity, our receptivity must translate into action. This is the essence of the connection between earthly deeds and heavenly wisdom. The profound truths we sense in the heart, the lessons gleaned through humility, are not meant to remain abstract or internalized in isolation. They are living principles, and they manifest through the choices we make, the way we treat others, and the way we navigate the realities of daily life. Think about it. The heart may sense the infinite, the mind may understand complex truths, but if our actions are disconnected from this awareness, the wisdom we carry is incomplete. There is a direct correspondence between what we embody internally and what we express externally. A humble heart that does not reflect humility in behavior risks stagnation. A heart attuned to divine insight that does not guide ethical action misses its purpose. In essence, earthly actions are the language through which the secrets of the sky are spoken into our reality. They are the bridge between what we perceive inwardly and what the world witnesses outwardly. This is where intention becomes crucial. Actions in themselves are not inherently meaningful. It is the consciousness behind them that determines their impact. When we act out of awareness, guided by humility, compassion, and understanding, even the smallest deeds carry significance. Offering a kind word, helping someone in need, or choosing patience in a moment of frustration, these acts, when rooted in inner awareness, are imbued with spiritual resonance. They are, in effect, earthly reflections of the wisdom we carry in our hearts. On a psychological level, this alignment between internal and external life fosters integrity, reduces inner conflict, and strengthens character. It is the harmony of knowing and doing, of insight and action. Moreover, consider the practical implications of this connection. Life constantly presents challenges, unpredictable circumstances, difficult people, moral dilemmas. Our responses in these moments reveal the depth of our internal cultivation. When our hearts are attuned to higher truths, we are less likely to be reactive, impulsive, or driven purely by self-interest. Instead, we respond with deliberation, compassion, and a sense of purpose. Earthly action, in this sense, becomes a mirror of the inner world. What we practice internally, humility, patience, ethical discernment, becomes what we manifest externally. And conversely, our actions reinforce the heart, strengthening our capacity to perceive and act wisely. It is a cycle, a feedback loop of growth. There is a spiritual dimension here as well. Many traditions emphasize that the divine is not encountered only in meditation, contemplation, or ritual, but in the choices we make, the deeds we perform, and the way we conduct our lives. The secrets of the sky, the eternal principles of justice, compassion, and wisdom are embedded in the fabric of daily life. Every interaction, every decision, every moment carries the potential to reflect that higher order. When we act consciously with awareness of the greater truths, we become instruments of those truths in the world. The sacred and the mundane are no longer separate. They are intertwined, inseparable, each reinforcing the other. So if we bow our heads in humility, open our hearts to perception, let us not stop there. Let the insight gained guide our hands, our speech, and our presence in the world. Let every action be an extension of the inner wisdom we cultivate. In doing so, we discover that life itself becomes a canvas for the truths we carry, the bridge between heaven and earth, between what is unseen and what is lived. And here is the thought to hold: wisdom without action is like light trapped in a lamp, unseen and untapped. It is through action, grounded in awareness and guided by the heart, that the secrets of the sky find form in the world. Let your life be that bridge, a living testimony that humility, awareness, and intention are not abstract ideals. They are the instruments through which heaven touches the earth. We have spoken about humility, the heart's awareness, and the alignment of our actions with higher truths. Yet even when we bow and open ourselves, there remains a crucial step: reflection. True insight is rarely instantaneous. It emerges through quiet contemplation, through the deliberate turning inward that allows us to sift through experience, emotion, and thought with clarity. Reflection is not merely thinking. It is a disciplined act of the heart and mind working together. It is the process through which the noise of the world falls away, and the subtle truths within begin to emerge. In a world saturated with distraction, reflection has become a rare art. We are constantly moving, constantly responding, rarely stopping to pause and consider. But it is precisely in those pauses, in those moments of conscious stillness, that transformation occurs. When we contemplate our actions, our intentions, and the patterns of our lives, we begin to notice the connections that were invisible in the busyness of everyday living. We see where ego has dictated choices, where fear has limited us, and where the heart has quietly nudged us toward what is true. Reflection transforms experience into wisdom, chaos into understanding, and instinct into intention. Psychologically, reflection cultivates self-mastery. Without it, we act as though we are at the mercy of circumstance, reaction, or emotion. But when we pause to examine, to question, and to discern, we reclaim agency. We become aware of the deeper currents that shape our responses, and we learn to act from principle rather than impulse. This is where spiritual depth and psychological insight intersect. Reflection allows the mind to integrate what the heart perceives, producing a coherent sense of purpose and a framework for living consciously. It is the bridge between knowledge and embodiment, between insight and action. Contemplation also sharpens perception. Life presents itself in layers, some visible, some subtle, some hidden. Only through intentional reflection can we uncover the hidden patterns, the quiet lessons, and the opportunities for growth. In those moments, we realize that our mistakes are not simply failures, but mirrors revealing what needs correction. Our successes are not only achievements, but indicators of alignment with enduring principles. Reflection teaches patience, discernment, and humility because it constantly reminds us that we are students in the vast school of life. It is a practice that deepens empathy, enriches understanding, and heightens the sensitivity of the heart. Spiritually, reflection is transformative because it allows us to encounter the divine within the ordinary. The secrets of the sky are often hidden in moments that appear mundane, a conversation, a challenge, a fleeting emotion. Without contemplation, these moments pass unnoticed. With reflection, every experience becomes a teacher, every challenge a guide, and every quiet moment a space for insight. Contemplation aligns the self with a higher order, allowing the heart to receive guidance that the mind alone cannot grasp. In this way, reflection is not passive, it is an active engagement with life, a deliberate cultivation of awareness that bridges the seen and unseen. But reflection demands courage. It requires that we face ourselves honestly, confront uncomfortable truths, and accept responsibility for our choices. It is easier to remain distracted, to avoid the discomfort of self-examination. Yet without this willingness, the heart cannot fully awaken, and the insights we seek remain out of reach. The transformative power of reflection lies not only in what we discover, but in the discipline to engage with what is uncomfortable, challenging, and profound. So, if humility bows the head, if the heart perceives, and if action manifests wisdom, let reflection be the lens through which we integrate it all. Let us cultivate the habit of intentional pause, the discipline of mindful contemplation, and the courage to face ourselves with honesty. In doing so, we transform not only our understanding, but the very quality of our lives. And here is the thought to carry forward. Reflection is the alchemy of the soul. Through it, experiences are refined into wisdom. Confusion becomes clarity, and ordinary moments reveal extraordinary truths. If you commit to reflection, you commit to growth, to awareness, and to a life in which the secrets of the sky can truly illuminate the path you walk on earth. Life is rarely linear, and even the most grounded hearts and humble minds will encounter moments of difficulty, uncertainty, and trial. Challenges are an inevitable part of the human journey. They arrive unannounced, often disrupting our carefully laid plans and testing our resilience. The question is not whether we will face hardship, but how we choose to navigate it. And this is where faith and perspective intersect to provide both a compass and an anchor in the storm. Faith is often misunderstood. Many think of it as blind optimism, as a naive hope that difficulties will vanish. But true faith is far more profound and active. It is the recognition that there exists a wisdom and order beyond what we immediately perceive. It is the understanding that life is not chaotic without reason, and that even the challenges we resist or resent are, in some form, shaping our character, guiding our path, or teaching us lessons we may not yet see. Faith does not remove the difficulties. It equips us to face them with courage, patience, and composure. It allows us to act decisively where action is possible and surrender gracefully where control is limited, without despair or bitterness. Perspective complements faith. When we encounter hardship, it is easy to become consumed by the immediacy of pain or the intensity of fear. Perspective, however, allows us to step back and view the situation within a broader context. It reminds us that what feels insurmountable today may be a momentary trial in the long course of our lives. Perspective allows us to recognize patterns, to understand that suffering is not always punishment but often preparation, and that setbacks, though difficult, can illuminate paths we might never have noticed otherwise. It is the lens through which we interpret adversity, transforming chaos into clarity and obstacles into opportunities. Psychologically, faith and perspective function as stabilizing forces. Human beings are wired to react emotionally to discomfort and uncertainty, often leading to impulsive decisions or prolonged anxiety. By cultivating faith, we acknowledge that we are not fully in control, which reduces the intensity of fear. By cultivating perspective, we expand our focus beyond immediate outcomes, which mitigates the paralysis of short-term stress. Together, faith and perspective allow us to act thoughtfully, respond wisely, and endure patiently, giving us the capacity to transform challenges into growth rather than allowing them to diminish us. Spiritually, these qualities reveal a profound truth. Hardship is not merely a trial to endure, it is a teacher. Each difficulty confronts us with our limitations, our attachments, and our fears. It compels us to reflect, refine, and reorient. Faith ensures that we trust in a higher wisdom during these moments, while perspective enables us to extract the lessons embedded within them. A person who navigates life with both faith and perspective learns to view adversity not as a threat to happiness, but as an essential part of the journey toward understanding, resilience, and spiritual maturity. So, if we have humbled our heads, opened our hearts, and aligned our actions with higher truths, let us not forget that faith and perspective are what sustain us when trials arrive. They transform fear into patience, uncertainty into clarity, and suffering into a source of insight. By nurturing these qualities, we do not merely survive the storms of life. We grow stronger, wiser, and more attuned to the deeper truths of existence. And here is the thought to carry forward. Life will challenge you, but the measure of strength is not in avoiding difficulty. It is in meeting it with faith in the unseen order and perspective that transcends the immediate. When you do, every challenge becomes an opportunity, every trial a teacher, and every moment of uncertainty a step closer to wisdom and inner resilience. If we have humbled our heads, opened our hearts, aligned our actions, reflected deeply, and navigated life with faith and perspective, the final step is to integrate all of this into a life of balance, what I call a life of balanced devotion. Devotion is often misunderstood. Many equate it only with ritual or overt acts of worship, but true devotion is far more expansive. It is the harmonious integration of our spiritual awareness, ethical conduct, and conscious engagement with the world. It is the art of living in a way that honors the divine, respects others, and nurtures the soul, without neglecting the responsibilities and relationships of our earthly existence. Balanced devotion requires awareness of priorities and boundaries. It acknowledges that the human experience is multidimensional. We are physical beings, emotional beings, social beings, and spiritual beings all at once. Neglecting one aspect in favor of another leads to imbalance. Spirituality without action can become theoretical and detached. Action without spiritual grounding can become mechanical or self-serving. Reflection without engagement can lead to paralysis or avoidance. Balanced devotion, therefore, is the practice of aligning every aspect of life so that the inner and outer worlds complement each other. It is the conscious integration of heart, mind, and action. Psychologically, living with balanced devotion cultivates resilience and clarity. When devotion is measured and holistic, it prevents burnout, guilt, and the spiritual or emotional fragmentation that often accompanies extremes. A person who practices balanced devotion approaches life with presence and purpose. They understand that their daily choices, how they speak, how they act, how they treat others, are all expressions of devotion. There is no need to compartmentalize the sacred and the secular, because the sacred is made manifest in everyday life. A kind word, a moment of honesty, an act of service, even patience in mundane tasks, all become pathways through which devotion is expressed. Spiritually, balanced devotion allows for intimacy with the divine without losing grounding in the world. It is a dynamic relationship between surrender and agency, surrender to the wisdom and order beyond our control, and agency in actively shaping our character, relationships, and contributions. This balance cultivates a profound sense of fulfillment because it recognizes that life's ultimate purpose is not only in isolated acts of worship, but in the integration of faith, ethics, and mindful engagement with all aspects of existence. True devotion is not passive. It is alive, deliberate, and transformative. Furthermore, balanced devotion strengthens the heart and mind. It cultivates virtues such as patience, gratitude, humility, and empathy. By consistently orienting ourselves toward what is meaningful, we create a life where external pressures and distractions lose their power to destabilize us. Our devotion becomes a stabilizing force, a guiding compass, and a source of joy. The practice of balance ensures that spirituality is not abstract or performative, but real, practical, and deeply embedded in the rhythm of everyday life. In essence, living with balanced devotion is about coherence. It is about ensuring that our inner reality, our outward actions, and our understanding of life's deeper truths are aligned. It is the culmination of the journey we have explored together, the humility that grounds us, the heart that perceives, the actions that reflect wisdom, the reflection that refines us, and perspective and faith that sustain us through difficulty. Balanced devotion integrates all of these elements, transforming them into a sustainable and meaningful way of life. So, I leave you with this thought: devotion is not measured by extremes, by constant struggle, or by rigid adherence to routine. It is measured by harmony, by the degree to which your inner awareness, your choices, and your relationships reflect the values you hold sacred. When you cultivate balanced devotion, you live fully, love deeply, and act intentionally. Your life becomes a living testament to the wisdom you carry, a bridge between the earth and the sky, and a reflection of the truths your heart has discovered. In balance, you find freedom, strength, and fulfillment, and in that balance, you embody the very essence of a life well lived.